Welcome to this month's Q&A. So first of all, I'm in a new venue. I'm in Australia, and just to let you know, that means I am on holidays. And whereas I will still be available via email, messaging, etc., I will be slower to get back to things sometimes because some days I want to completely detach myself from work just so I make sure I'm actually doing this holiday thing right. Otherwise, though, I am still checking in and out every so often. So first question I'm going to answer is, would you recommend doing your workouts in shoes or barefoot? So this depends. So if you're used to doing things barefoot already, go for it. If you're doing things where your feet are flat on the floor, or it's upper body exercises like anything like squats, deadlifts, bench press, overhead press, where the feet are flat, that's absolutely fine for anyone. But otherwise, if you have any concerns about your feet or you're not too sure if they're very strong to go into barefoot training, just take it slow. And anything plyometric, anything jumping, you definitely want to feel like you already have some competency in that regard and confidence with going in your bare feet. But honestly, it's sometimes better to do it with your shoes on because you'll jump further and higher and faster. So anything that you're looking for maximum explosivity out of it, just go for wearing the shoes. And otherwise, if you want to do some of the simpler hops barefoot to strengthen the ankle, go for it. Lifting in the reactive split stance deadlifts this month, it's normal to go down in weight. So someone's just asking like what they should expect to lift compared to the last month in particular. It's normal to go down compared to what you're doing in the catch version, just because you have to actually go down and up so quickly. So that's fine, and then you can just build back up into whatever numbers you're lifting before. But mostly remember, it's a movement based around quality rather than quantity. So you're not looking for numbers on the bar here. What you want is to feel like you're moving smoothly, and there's effort, so you do have to push hard into the ground, but it's not taking you forever to get back up, so it's a fast movement. Next one is, how's your program work outdoor season when we have more practice and tournaments? So I'm going to go a little bit off into a tangent here before rounding back to answering this. This is the highest intensity month essentially of the year in terms of running in particular. So you might not feel that so much in the gym, but it is actually more complex in the gym. So the lifts are faster and a little bit harder to execute in terms of the technique involved. For example, like the dumbbell snatch. So if you haven't been consistent with your training up to this point, whether you're new to my plan but you were following something else, that still counts. So you've been consistently training, or if you've been on my program for several months but you've kind of been dipping in and out, then you really need to not just launch yourself into this month and start trying to do 100% of everything straight away. So you need to balance your energy levels from session to session. So then if you're struggling with that, just take more rest days and do lighter lifts and focus more on doing the running as intensely as you can. Although in saying that, if you are back to training, trials, tournaments, anything that's pretty tiring and high intensity, then you might like to actually cut one of the running sessions a week. You can focus on the shuttles instead of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 SAQ, but I would say try to achieve the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 session at least once in a month. Like, try to do it just to get that, because it's a tough drill. And this month is a little bit about grit. So being able to actually grind out these running drills under fatigue and at speed. So this is the real sort of game level intensity we're trying to build our conditioning up to. You'll feel like you have achieved something mentally as well once you get through these. So that'll really stand to you as the season comes in. The other thing is, if you're back to training and tournaments and stuff and you're suddenly doing about 6 days a week, or it's coming up that you're going to have this high intensity weekend and then you're trying to do 4 workouts as well in the week, that week you probably, like a lot of people get through that and think they're fine. But it's the next week where you can end up putting yourself at a higher risk for injury. You are at a higher risk, basically. If you spike a sudden week in volume and intensity, then the next week is actually when you're likely to maybe hurt yourself. So follow that hard week with an easy week, and then you should be fine. So let your body actually fully recover. So that might mean just focusing a little bit more on recovery things, like replacing the sprint workout with a slow jog or a swim or a sports massage or yoga, or just stretching and walking, and some social time as well, because mentally it's really nice to unwind and reset that way as well. And so to answer what happens when we have more practice in tournaments, from March on, I'm assuming that everyone is getting stuck into something. So it then turns into a high-low model. So there'll be one high-intensity gym day, one high-intensity running day, but then the other 2 days are going to be lower, so that you can balance that out. And some weeks you might just choose the lower intensity workouts, again based on your training and competition schedules and trying out. So then you have the options between the two, and you can mix and match. And if you have the time and the energy, and again you've been consistent and you can do all 4 workouts, that's great as well. You can always, as I discussed before, combine a gym and a running session on the same day. So do the sprints, if you're doing sprints, get the higher quality by doing those before the gym, ideally. If you can't, it's fine, but it's ideal to get that before and then go into your gym after that. If it's a low intensity day, it's actually absolutely fine if you do the running after the gym. Either way, it'll work fine. And then gradually then it'll change into, from April, it'll go into more of maintenance of your power and strength and self-care, like making sure injury prevention work is really high, your flexibility is still there, your body is, so what happens when we play sports a lot is it can become quite asymmetrical, so we're trying to bring you back to balance, back to center, and make sure you kind of don't shift too far in one direction. And then, because somebody asked, is the plan applicable if you're not playing a UCF? So their main tournament actually happens in the middle of the summer, and I would say yes, because of the way from April on it'll kind of turn into more of that maintenance stuff. It doesn't really peak as such, because your training should be what's peaking. So your tournaments get harder and more important, your training gets higher and higher intensity, and that's where you really want to perfect that sort of peaking. Whereas the workouts are trying to supplement that and work around that and mold themselves into it. So they'll taper off for sure to take into account the bigger tournaments, but they're mostly, as I said, like that sort of maintenance work and self-care and injury prevention. And so that means you can just stop at any stage in the summer. So if you sign up you don't have to stay on the program until UCF, and it doesn't matter if you're playing UCF or not. So that counts as well if maybe your team, you're not sure if they'll qualify. And I think I kind of addressed this earlier, but just in case, with the running sessions, if you can only do one, pick the shuttles one. That's the kind of harder one, but it also has a little bit more progressive work within it. The 1 to 3 for 5 does as well, but just try and get to that at least once in the month, I recommend. And I think those are all the main questions from this month. So I hope you have a really good time enjoying it. Any struggles or anything, get in touch. And as always, I'm happy to hear feedback about anything else along the way.